I had just brought my father-in-law, who'd been in a vegetative state for 3 years, home from the hospital. The first words out of his mouth when he opened his eyes were, "My boy, come on. Dad's taking you somewhere special." Next thing I knew, he dragged me to a lavishly decorated spa and lounge. In a private room, a technician in a short skirt had just draped a small blanket over my legs when the door was kicked open with a thunderous bang. It was my Ice Queen wife, Isabella Hayes. Her face was a mask of cold fury as she pointed a finger straight at my nose. "Leo Evans, you are a pathetic, useless loser." Then she turned on her father. "Dad, you just got out of the hospital and you're already pulling this crap." I was about to lie back and take the verbal abuse. The divorce papers were always ready to be signed, after all. But to my utter shock, my father-in-law, Arthur Hayes, shot up from the massage chair. He raised his hand and delivered a resounding slap across Isabella's face. "You disrespectful brat. Is that any way to talk to your brother Leo? Apologize. Now." Isabella was stunned. I was stunned. "Brother, Leo." The crisp sound of the slap echoed through the luxurious suite, so loud it seemed to cut through the ambient music. The technician cowered in a corner, not daring to breathe. The small blanket slid off my lap, revealing my equally dumbfounded expression. Isabella clutched her stinging cheek, staring at her father in disbelief. "Dad, you hit me?" Her voice trembled. "Damn right I hit you." Arthur's voice boomed with energy. He jabbed a finger at her. "No manners at all. Apologize to Leo." Isabella's gaze finally shifted from her father to me. The usual contempt and disdain in her eyes were gone, replaced by pure shock and confusion. I just spread my hands, a silent gesture that I was as clueless as she was. Just 3 hours earlier, I had finished the discharge paperwork and brought my father-in-law, Comatose for 3 long years, back home. At the hospital, I'd been giving him a sponge bath when Isabella had stormed in, her face like stone, and slammed a file on the bedside table. "Leo, sign it. You get nothing. Just get out of my life and stop making me sick." It was the divorce agreement. For 3 years, she had been waiting for this day. I felt a wave of relief wash over me and picked up the pen, ready to sign. But just as the tip was about to touch the paper, Arthur's eyelids fluttered violently on the hospital bed. He shot his eyes open and grabbed my wrist with a surprisingly strong grip. "My savior," he'd bellowed, his voice raspy but loud. Doctors rushed in, ran their tests, and declared it a medical miracle. They warned us, however, that patients in the initial stages of waking might have memory discrepancies, and we should just play along. The Hayes family was ecstatic, completely ignoring me, the live-in son-in-law who was about to be kicked to the curb. Who could have guessed that by evening, Arthur would mysteriously pull me out of the house, insisting he had to repay me for 3 years of unwavering brotherly love. And that's how we ended up at the Gilded Lotus Spa and Lounge. Now, Isabella looked like she'd just swallowed a hornet. Make me apologize to him? Dad, is your brain still scrambled? My brain is sharper than ever. Arthur yanked me behind him protectively, like a mother hen guarding her chick. When I was unconscious, it was Leo who was by my side every day, telling me what was happening in the world, massaging my legs to keep the blood flowing. And you? What did you do besides glare at everyone? I listened, completely bewildered. I had just been bored, scrolling through TikTok with the volume up. What do you know? Leo brought me here for rehabilitative therapy. It's called reflexology. It improves circulation. Arthur declared with righteous conviction. He pointed at the stunned technician. You see her? She's a licensed therapist. Isabella's chest heaved. She was so furious. She pointed at me and yelled at Arthur. Dad, don't let him fool you. He's a complete and utter loser. Shut your mouth. Arthur raised his hand again. Isabella flinched and took a step back, her eyes instantly turning red. I quickly grabbed my father-in-law's arm. Dad, it's fine, it's fine. We're family. Who's family with her? Arthur shook my hand off and glared at Isabella. If you don't apologize to Leo today, then you're no daughter of mine. A standoff. A dead, chilling silence. Isabella stared daggers at me, as if she wanted to skin me alive. I chose to study the gaudy gold reliefs on the ceiling. Finally, 3 words squeezed through Isabella's clenched teeth. I am sorry. Her voice was barely a whisper. Louder. Did you not eat today? Arthur pressed. Isabella squeezed her eyes shut, took a deep breath, and snapped them open. Leo, I'm sorry. With that, she spun on her heel and stormed out, her back rigid with fury. Only then did Arthur sit down, satisfied. He clapped me on the shoulder. Leo, my brother, don't mind her. She's just a kid. Come on, let's continue. Technician, start the clock. I looked toward the empty doorway, a strange feeling dawning on me. Life, it seemed, was about to get a lot more interesting. Back at the Hayes mansion, the atmosphere was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Isabella and her mother, my mother-in-law, Carol Hayes, sat on opposite ends of the sofa, their expressions grim, like a tribunal about to pass judgment. Arthur plopped down in the main armchair, crossed his legs, and casually offered me a cigarette. I waved it away, shaking my head. "Leo, you need to explain yourself," Carol began, her tone measured but firm. "Explain what?" I asked, sinking lazily into a single-seater. "Explain why you took my father to a place like that." Isabella's voice shot up an octave, all the humiliation from earlier erupting at once. She launched into a tirade, listing all my, or rather, the original Leo's, sins. Lazy, unambitious, a freeloader living off the Hayes family for 3 years. And now, I'd added debauchery to the list, corrupting her freshly discharged father. "Someone like you is a disgrace to this family. I feel sick just looking at you." Her words were sharp, each one a poisoned icicle. Listening to her, I found it almost funny. I nodded. "Yep, you're right about all of it. So, please, pack your things and get the hell out of this house now." She produced the divorce agreement she'd prepared and slammed it onto the coffee table again. I was about to say gladly when Arthur, beside me, slammed his hand on the table. Insolence. The water glasses on the table jumped. Carol and Isabella both flinched. "Isabella, you disappoint me more than I can say." Arthur stood up, his face a mask of anguish, and began his performance. "You say Leo is lazy? He took care of me for 3 years. 3 whole years. How many times did you visit me? And for how long? 5 minutes? 10? Isabella's face went pale. "You say he's into debauchery? He took me there to get my circulation going. The doctors all said I need to move around, promote blood flow. Reflexology is the most efficient way to do that. Don't talk about things you don't understand." My jaw dropped. How'd he spin that? "And you say he's unambitious?" When I was in that bed, he sat by my side every single day, reading me the latest financial news, analyzing the global markets. How else do you think I was able to catch up with the world so quickly after waking up? I'm telling you that boy's business instincts are sharper than yours, and you're the CEO. I almost burst out laughing. That was just me listening to finance podcasts during my previous life as a corporate drone. Isabella was completely floored. She looked at Arthur, then at me, her eyes filled with utter confusion. "You don't know him at all." Arthur delivered his closing statement, pointing at me as if presenting a priceless treasure. "Leo is a diamond in the rough. You people were just too blind to see it, treating him like a worthless rock." He scanned the room, then announced with booming authority, "To make up for the grievances Leo has suffered these past 3 years, from this day forward, my pension, my personal savings, all of my finances, will be managed by my brother Leo." "Arthur, are you insane?" Carol, my mother-in-law, finally shrieked. I've never been more clear-headed. Arthur strode over to me and shoved his bank cards and phone into my hands. "Leo, my brother, from now on, you hold the purse strings in this family. If anyone dares to bully you, you cut off their allowance." I stood there holding the pile of plastic and metal, feeling like I was holding a live bomb. Isabella stared at me, her lips trembling, unable to utter a single word. Her face shifted from pale to red and back again, a fascinating sight to behold. All I could do was offer her an innocent, helpless shrug. The next morning, I slept in. I decided to walk downtown for some donuts and coffee. While I pulled out my phone to pay, a notification popped up on the screen. Payment failed. Card has been frozen. I tried another credit card. Same result. A moment later, a text from Isabella arrived. "Want money? Beg for it." Just a few words, dripping with her usual arrogance and need for control. I scoffed and shoved the phone back in my pocket. A petty trick like that might have worked on the old Leo, the one who was hopelessly in love with her. But on me? I turned and walked back to the mansion. Arthur was in the backyard practicing his golf putting, his form surprisingly fluid. I pulled up a stool, sat down next to him, and, without saying a word, let out a long, theatrical sigh. It wasn't loud, but it was loud enough. Arthur immediately stopped and rushed over, his face etched with concern. "Leo, my brother, what is it? Sighing so early in the morning. Did that girl Isabella give you trouble again?" I gazed up at the sky at a 45-degree angle, my expression melancholic. "It's nothing. I just feel like life is so dull. Thought I'd find a little joy, but it turns out I don't even have enough money to buy a can of Coke." I didn't mention the frozen cards, but the message was clear. The nerve of her. Arthur exploded in anger. He whipped out his phone. "Zelle or Venmo. Quick, before your Aunt Carol finds out where I stash my private savings. I'll send you 50 grand for now. Spend it. If you need more, just tell your little bro. Little bro? It took me a second to process that. Yeah, with a bond like ours, I might be a few years older, but I'm honored to call myself your little brother, Arthur declared, thumping his chest as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Ping. My phone chimed with a notification, a deposit of $50,000. I looked at my new best friend for life and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Thanks, little bro, I said, deciding to just roll with it. The first thing I did with the money was open the Amazon app. I ordered the newest game console, a 4K curved monitor, an ergonomic gaming chair, and a matching mechanical keyboard with top-of-the-line headphones. I put the mansion's address down for delivery. That afternoon, a train of delivery trucks rolled into our exclusive neighborhood, causing quite a stir at the security gate. I stood on the porch, directing the drivers as they unloaded one massive box after another into Isabella's elegant, book-lined study. When she came home from work, the first thing she saw was me, enthusiastically unboxing and assembling my new gear. Her sanctuary of literature was being transformed into a high-tech, cyberpunk-style gaming command center. Leo, what are you doing? She shrieked, her perfectly applied makeup unable to hide the rage contorting her face. Assembling my equipment. Can't you see? I said without looking up, continuing to tighten a screw. Where did you get the money for this? She lunged forward and snatched the screwdriver out of my hand. I pointed a thumb over my shoulder. Arthur was crouched on the floor beside me, intently studying the instruction manual. Sensing his daughter's murderous gaze, he puffed out his chest and snapped the manual shut. I gave it to Leo. What about it? He walked over, shielding me protectively. A man needs to have his own hobbies. All you do is work, work, work. Have you ever once cared about Leo's inner world? This is called an immersive entertainment experience. It's good for relieving stress. Isabella looked back and forth between the two of us, one defiant, the other completely shameless. For the first time, a flicker of genuine curiosity and confusion crossed her face. What kind of spell had this loser cast on her father? Isabella actually started to reflect. Maybe it was a blunt comment from one of the company's old board members, who told her a marriage couldn't be so tense. Whatever the reason, she changed. On Friday afternoon, she did something unheard of. She came home from work early. I was in my new command center, headphones on, deep in a firefight with my online teammates. She wasn't wearing her usual cold expression. Instead, she was carrying a grocery bag filled with high-end steaks and a bottle of what looked like very expensive red wine. She even awkwardly entered the kitchen and tied on an apron she had never once touched. Through the gaps in the gunfire sound from my headphones, I could hear a clatter of pots and pans from the kitchen. I couldn't help but wonder what new scheme she was hatching. At 7 o'clock, I was on a roll, having just scored a pentakill in my game. The door to the room was thrown open with a bang. Assuming it was Isabella looking for another fight, I said without turning, "What is it now? Just order takeout for dinner." "Leo, my brother, stop playing. Come have a drink." It was Arthur's booming voice. I took off my headphones and saw him standing in the doorway, his face flushed and happy, holding 2 ice-cold beers. Come on, your little bro has a surprise for you." He didn't wait for an answer, just pulled me right out of my gaming chair. He dragged me out to the backyard, where I stopped dead in my tracks, stunned by the scene before me. A large round table was laden with steaming barbecue, spicy crawfish, and several large pitchers of ice beer. The air was thick with the smell of cumin and chili, a comforting, down-to-earth aroma. Your little bro knows you can't stand that bland, healthy stuff we usually eat. Arthur cracked open a beer and handed it to me. This is what I call a man's kind of romance. I was genuinely hungry, so I didn't hesitate. I grabbed a skewer of grilled sausage and started eating. I had to admit, it was delicious. My father-in-law, no, my little bro, and I clinked bottles, played drinking games, and had a blast. Meanwhile, in the mansion's formal dining room, Isabella stared at the meticulously prepared candlelit dinner. The steaks were cold. The red wine stood alone on the table. She waited and waited, but I never showed up. Finally, she couldn't stand it anymore and went looking for me. And that's when she saw it. Her father and me in the backyard, shirts off, one foot on our chairs, our faces red from drinking. Her carefully crafted ritual of romance was utterly crushed by this cheap but joyous barbecue. She stood there for a long time before either of us noticed her. "Isabella, come join us," Arthur called out, waving drunkenly. "Leo's a great drinker. Don't you be the weak link." Isabella looked at the table littered with skewers and bones, then at the grease shining on my chin, and was speechless. A profound sense of powerlessness, something she had never experienced before, washed over her. She wanted to explode, but she felt like an intruder completely out of place. In the end, She just turned and walked silently back into that cold, empty dining room. That weekend, an unexpected guest arrived. Julian Vance, a rising star in the business world and Isabella's most famous suitor. He pulled up in a flashy Aston Martin, carrying a massive bouquet of unnaturally blue roses, looking every bit the smug tycoon. Isabella happened to be coming downstairs and frowned ever so slightly when she saw him. "Isabella, I just got back from Europe. Brought you a little something," Julian said with a practiced smile, holding out a designer gift box. I chose that moment to wander down from upstairs, wearing board shorts and flip-flops, sipping a glass of iced Coke. Julian's eyes fell on me, and he looked me up and down with open contempt. "Isabella, your new housekeeper doesn't seem to know his place. Dressing like that in front of the owners." The superiority in his voice was practically dripping. Isabella's expression darkened, and she was about to correct him when Arthur appeared out of nowhere. He threw an arm around my shoulder and grinned at Julian. "Mr. Vance, your eyesight must be going. Let me make a formal introduction. This is my brother, Leo." The smile on Julian's face froze. "Brother Leo? A housekeeper?" But he recovered quickly, a look of understanding dawning in his eyes. He must have interpreted this as some kind of test from the Hayes family, a bizarre game played by the super-rich. "Ah, Leo, a pleasure. My apologies," he said, instantly switching to a warm, enthusiastic smile and extending a hand toward me. I ignored him, walked over to the sofa, and turned on the TV. Julian's hand was left hanging awkwardly in midair. Arthur, standing beside him, enlightened him with a stage whisper. "Around here, what Leo says goes. You just don't get it." The light bulb went on over Julian's head. So, the way to Isabella is through this guy. And so began an absurd farce. In his quest to win over Isabella, Julian started trying desperately to win me over. The next day, he sent over a pair of limited edition Air Jordans, calling them a small gift for my new friend, Leo. I accepted them and immediately listed them on eBay. The day after, he called and invited me to play golf to cultivate a friendship among the elite. I told him I was busy. I had to go to the farmer's market. He paused for a second, then showed up at our front door in his Ferrari, insisting on being my personal chauffeur. And so, the local farmer's market was treated to a peculiar sight. A man in a bespoke suit, looking utterly lost among the grandmas and grandpas, awkwardly carrying my bags of onions and garlic. When Isabella got home from work, she saw Julian's convertible pulling up with me in the passenger seat, pointing and giving directions. "Turn right. Go to that deli and get a rotisserie chicken. Make sure it's fresh out of the oven." Her entire worldview was once again shaken to its core. That evening, Julian showed up with yet another gift, looking at me expectantly. I patted his shoulder and said in a grave tone, "Listen, Julian, your attitude is great." His face lit up. I changed my tone. "But Isabella, she's got a bad temper. She's not very considerate. She's not good enough for you. Take my advice. You can do better." Julian thought I was speaking in code, testing his resolve. He immediately puffed up his chest. "Don't you worry, Leo. My feelings for Isabella are true. I'll just have to try even harder." Watching his determined face, I had to physically restrain myself from laughing. Isabella seemed to be provoked by Julian's idiotic behavior. She decided to take the initiative and regain control. She must have read it in some dating guide, because she bought 2 tickets to a popular romance movie for the special couples recliner seats. On Saturday night, she handed me the tickets, her voice uncharacteristically soft. "Are you free tonight? I thought we could see a movie." I looked at the tickets for Before Sunrise and was about to respond when Arthur, just back from his evening walk, spotted them. "Oh, that movie. My old army buddies were recommending that one. Said it was great. Count me in." The color drained from Isabella's face. I immediately played the part of the dutiful son-in-law. "Well, if Dad wants to go, we have to take him. But I only have 2 tickets. A glimmer of hope appeared in Isabella's eyes. Right in front of her, I pulled out my phone and dialed Julian's number. "Hey, Julian," I said. Julian's voice on the other end was practically trembling with excitement. "Leo, you called me. Your chance to shine has arrived," I announced, clearing my throat. "Tonight, 7:30 p.m., AMC Theater Before Sunrise. I need 2 tickets, and they have to be right next to my seats." "No problem, Leo. Mission accepted." Julian's voice was full of vigor. I hung up and turned to Isabella and Arthur with a helpless shrug. All set. Isabella's expression was worse than if she'd swallowed a bug. At the movie theater, the 4 of us made for a very strange picture. I had, of course, made the perfect seating arrangements. Arthur and Isabella sat in the couple's recliner I'd bought. Julian and I sat directly behind them, in the premium seats he had managed to secure at the last minute. The movie started and the lights went down. It was a classic romantic drama, slow-paced, filled with whispered, sweet nothings. During the emotional climax, when the main characters kissed on a Ferris wheel, the theater was filled with the sound of stifled sobs. Isabella seemed moved. She instinctively turned her head, probably to check my reaction, seeking some kind of emotional connection. Instead, she saw her own father crying harder than anyone, wiping his eyes with his sleeve and muttering, "So beautiful. That poor girl has been through so much." Her eye twitched. She shifted her gaze to the row behind her. There, Julian was gripping my arm, enthusiastically analyzing the film. "Leo, you see? The use of this long take symbolizes the unending nature of their emotional journey." And me? I was leaning back in my chair, fast asleep, letting out soft, rhythmic snores. The movie ended and the lights came up. Isabella watched as Julian and I walked out of the theater, chattering away like old friends, while our father trailed behind us, still dissecting the plot, telling anyone who would listen that the film really sticks with you. She felt like a complete and utter clown. Her meticulously planned romantic date had devolved into a four-person farce. His pursuit of failure, Julian's frustration finally boiled over into anger. Convinced that I was the key to the Hayes family and feeling that I'd been toying with him, his true nature as a ruthless businessman emerged. He began to attack Isabella's company. He leveraged his network and resources to snatch a crucial, long-planned real estate project right out from under the Hayes Corporation. The move sent the company's stock into a nosedive, threatening massive losses. Isabella was suddenly thrown into a crisis. She started sleeping at the office, pulling all-nighters in endless meetings. She grew visibly exhausted, but couldn't find a way out of the mess. The atmosphere at home turned grim. My mother-in-law, Carol, started sighing dramatically, making passive-aggressive comments about how Isabella shouldn't have offended a powerful man like Julian Vance. "If you had just been a little nicer to him, we wouldn't be in this situation." Isabella said nothing, just silently sipping her bitter coffee. Arthur was getting anxious, too. He might be retired, but he was still deeply attached to the family business. That night, he pulled me into the study, my command center, and handed me a stack of documents. "Leo, my brother, you've seen the world. Take a look at these. Is there any way out of this?" he asked, his face full of sincere hope. I had no intention of getting involved in this mess. I'd had enough of the corporate grind in my past life. This time, I just wanted to chill. But seeing the genuine worry on my father-in-law's face, I felt an unexpected twinge of sympathy. I picked up the files and skimmed through them. They were full of traditional business plans, outdated models with zero innovation. "He can steal one project, but can't we just create a new one?" I said offhandedly. "This whole model is archaic. It's not keeping up with the times. Nowadays, it's all about disruptive tech, you know? You got to build user funnels, cultivate private traffic pools, monetize the fan economy." I started spewing a mishmash of marketing buzzwords I'd picked up from podcasts and online articles. Down market penetration, cross-platform synergy, content-driven e-commerce. I said it with such confidence I almost believed it myself. Arthur's eyes lit up like he'd discovered the Holy Grail. He slammed his hand on his thigh. "Of course. Why didn't I think of that?" He grabbed a few pages of notes from the desk and shot out of the room like a hurricane, heading straight for the corporate office. I shrugged, put on my headphones, and went back to my game. The next day, the Hayes Corporation held an emergency press conference. Isabella stood at the podium, all traces of her recent exhaustion gone. She announced that they were abandoning the fight for the old project and would instead launch a brand new smart community commercial ecosystem initiative. The plan was infused with all the buzzwords I had casually made up the day before. The announcement sent shockwaves through the industry. Compared to the traditional real estate project Julian had stolen, Isabella's new plan was far more innovative and forward-thinking. The capital markets responded immediately and positively. The Hayes Corporation's stock, which had been plummeting, reversed course and began to climb, completely turning the situation around. The project Julian had spent a fortune to acquire instantly became a white elephant, too bland to be exciting, too expensive to abandon. He had been completely outmaneuvered. The crisis was averted. That evening, Isabella came home. She didn't go to the dining room, but walked straight into my command center. I was in the middle of a heated match, teamed up with Arthur. She just stood in the doorway, quietly watching me. The look in her eyes was no longer contempt or confusion. It was shock, curiosity, and a hint of something I had never seen there before. Admiration? "Thank you," she said, her voice a little hoarse. My eyes were still glued to the screen as I worked the keyboard and mouse. "Yeah, no problem," I replied without looking up. After all, I added, if the company went bankrupt, nobody would be around to pay our allowance. I meant mine and Arthur's. Isabella's body flinched slightly. She watched as her father and I executed a perfectly coordinated attack in the game. Her lips parted as if to say something, but in the end, she said nothing at all and quietly backed out of the room. After the corporate crisis, my status in the Hayes household changed dramatically. The most noticeable shift came from my mother-in-law, Carol. Before, her eyes were always filled with judgment and disapproval, as if I were a stain on her perfect daughter's life. Now, she looked at me like I was a winning lottery ticket. She started making me all sorts of soups and smoothies, bone broth for cognitive function, kale concoctions for vitality. The menu changed daily. Leo, dear, you've been using your brain so much lately. You have to replenish your energy, she'd say, pushing a bowl toward me with a benevolent smile. She also started dropping hints, trying to probe my feelings. Leo, what do you think of our Isabella? I just sip my soup and give a non-committal. She's just a bit stubborn, you know? Her heart is in the right place, my mother-in-law would say, suddenly becoming her daughter's biggest advocate. You're such a brilliant man. She just didn't see it before, but I'm sure she sees it now. Arthur joined the campaign as well. From then on, every time Isabella came home, she was subjected to a pincer attack from her own parents. At the dinner table, as I was focused on my food, the two of them would start their routine. Arthur would play the bad cop, a man of Leo's talent. Once he decides to get serious, is like a sleeping giant waking up. There are plenty of smart young women out there lining up for a man like him. Isabella, if you keep up this high and mighty attitude, you'll live to regret it. Carol will play the good cop. He's right, honey. Look at Leo. He's devoted to his family. He has a brilliant business mind, and he's so calm under pressure. How did you not see how wonderful he is? A husband and wife need to communicate, to be considerate of each other. Isabella, now being pressured by her entire family to win me back, found the roles completely reversed. She sat there like a chastised schoolgirl, her head down, silently picking at her food. She started trying to be nice to me. For instance, she spent a whole weekend shopping and bought me several new outfits. The moment I tried on a formal dress shirt, Arthur shook his head disapprovingly. No, that color is too stuffy. It completely dulls Leo's charisma. Then he grabbed me, threw me in the family's Rolls-Royce Cullinan, and drove us to a high-end streetwear boutique downtown, where he bought me a whole new wardrobe from head to toe. Another time, she tried to talk with me in the evening to mend our relationship. I had just sat down on the sofa when Carol bustled over with a fruit platter. Leo, dear, come, I need your expert advice. What do you think about the new Tesla stock? All my friends are buying it. And just like that, I was pulled into a conversation with a group of wealthy housewives dispensing financial wisdom I'd gleaned from the internet. Isabella was left sitting there by herself, completely stranded in a sea of her own family. She was isolated and helpless, getting her first taste of the cold shoulder and awkwardness the old Leo had endured for 3 years. One failed attempt after another pushed Isabella to the breaking point. One evening, she came home to see me once again surrounded by her parents, laughing and chatting, while she stood on the outside looking in. She finally snapped. She stormed up to Arthur, her eyes red-rimmed, her voice raw and cracking. Dad, are you even my father? Why are you doing this to me? Why are you always siding with an outsider against me? The atmosphere in the living room instantly froze. Carol started to intervene, but Arthur stopped her with a single look. Arthur's face flushed with anger. He looked at the daughter who had always been his pride and joy, his expression filled with disappointment. Siding with him? I'm trying to help you. He was so angry he was sputtering. He grabbed my hand. Leo, come on. Let's go have a drink. He pulled me down to the wine cellar, opened a bottle of vintage Macallan he'd been saving for years, and started drinking straight from the bottle. As he drank, he started to vent, his words slurring with alcohol. Isabella had followed us. She stood at the entrance to the cellar, just watching. After a few more swigs, Arthur was unsteady on his feet. He threw an arm around my shoulder, pointed a shaky finger at Isabella, and roared out the words he'd been holding back for years. You think I didn't know? Those 3 years I was lying in that bed, I wasn't a corpse. There were times when I was aware. I could hear things. I heard Leo calling you every day, and you never answered. I heard him texting you, asking if you're coming home for dinner, and you always said you were working. I heard him in the middle of the night, turning me over, cleaning me up, and I heard you too. On the rare occasions you came home, I heard what you said to him. Useless. Burden. Disgusting. You think I didn't hear you? The color drained from Isabella's face, leaving it a ghastly white. When I woke up, I saw that Leo was a different person. He was lazy, he was detached. I thought you had broken his heart, that his spirit was dead. And I was scared. I was terrified that you were going to chase away the best son-in-law a man could ask for. That's why I did it. I had to shake you up. I had to make you understand that you can't push a man into a corner. If you pushed him away, I don't know who you'd ever find who was as good as Leo. The truth was out. The reason was so absurd, yet laced with a clumsy, profound affection. Arthur's memory wasn't scrambled at all. He was perfectly lucid. Behind all his bizarre behavior was a father, using his own awkward methods to save his daughter's marriage. Isabella stood there, trembling, tears streaming down her face like broken pearls. Regret, shame, shock. A torrent of emotions washed over her, drowning her completely. She finally understood just how wrong, how terribly wrong, she had been for the past 3 years. She had wounded a man who once had eyes only for her, and the person trying to wake her from her stupor was her own father. She looked at me, her eyes filled with pain and pleading. I just silently handed Arthur another bottle of whiskey, my own heart a mix of complicated feelings. From that day on, Isabella completely shed her pride. She started trying all sorts of clumsy ways to win me back. For a CEO accustomed to giving orders, she was like a hopeless intern when it came to courtship. She started waking up early every day to make me breakfast. But for someone who had never set foot in a kitchen, the results were predictable. The eggs were either burnt to a crisp, or the oatmeal was salty enough to kill a horse. I would eat it without expression while Arthur watched with a pained look, sliding a glass of milk toward me. My brother, you're suffering. Maybe we should just order from Grubhub. Isabella would blush and insist. Tomorrow. I'll get it right tomorrow. She started following online dating guides, buying me gifts. But her choices were always strangely off-key. One time, she mysteriously handed me a beautifully wrapped box. I opened it to find an entire case of Rogaine. I noticed you've been staying up late, gaming a lot, she explained in a small voice. I ran a hand through my own thick hair, utterly speechless. She tried to surprise me by bringing a homemade lunch to my office, the command center at home. But when she arrived, she found me, Arthur, and a few of the company's executives all gathered around, eating from the company cafeteria and talking business. She stood there, holding her exquisite lunch pail, looking completely out of place. She even started learning to play my favorite video game, trying to find common ground. But her skills were so abysmal, her movements chaotic, her game sense non-existent, that during a crucial team fight, she got our entire squad wiped out. I finally lost my patience. Over the team-wide voice chat, in the calmest tone possible, I said, "Hey, Isabella, could you please leave the game? Our odds are better 4 against 5. Then I helpfully kicked her from the party. The once high and mighty Ice Queen was now humbled. Every one of her attempts to show affection was like punching a pillow, and often made worse by a well-timed comment from me or Arthur, turning the situation into a running joke. Julian Vance, ever persistent, showed up at her company again to corner her. This time, before I could even intervene, Isabella handled it herself, her face cold as steel. "Mr. Vance, I'm asking you to please stop harassing me and my husband," she said, her voice clear and firm. "Otherwise, I would be more than happy to show you, in the marketplace, what truly means to regret something." Julian finally got the message and left, his tail between his legs. Watching her clumsy but sincere efforts, I felt the ice around my own heart begin to show the faintest signs of melting. That night, Arthur found me for a drink. "Leo, my brother, see? My daughter's not so bad, right? She's finally getting it," he said with a proud grin. Then he quickly added, "But if she's still annoying you, just say the word. Your little bro will run interference. I guarantee she won't get within 10 feet of you." I just smiled, and for the first time I didn't play along. The annual Hayes family banquet was held at the old family estate. Relatives from all over had gathered. As the live-in son-in-law, I was naturally the center of attention. After a few rounds of drinks, a distant uncle-in-law staggered over to me, a glass of wine in his hand. "So, Leo, still getting used to living with the Hayes family?" he slurred, a smirk on his face. "You've really got it made. Don't have to do a thing. Food and drink just handed to you. Much better than the rest of us working stiffs." The sarcasm in his voice was thick and undisguised. In previous years, the old Leo would have just shrunk into his chair. But before I or Arthur could say a word, Isabella slammed her chopsticks down on the table with a loud crack. She stood up. Every eye in the room turned to her. She didn't look at the uncle. She walked straight to me and pulled a folder out of her purse. It wasn't a divorce agreement. It was a property transfer agreement and a new prenuptial, or rather, postnuptial agreement. She placed the documents in front of me, her voice ringing clearly through the suddenly silent hall. "Leo Evans, all of my personal real estate holdings, including 3 mansions and 5 downtown condos, as well as my 15% stake in the Hayes Corporation, I hereby transfer to you, free and clear. From this day forward, all of my personal income will be under your complete control. I, Isabella Hayes, voluntarily waive my right to initiate a divorce. The future of this marriage will be decided by you, and you alone. Dead silence. Every relative was frozen, their mouths hanging open wide enough to catch flies. The snide uncle's wine glass slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor. Isabella wasn't finished. In front of everyone, she faced me and bowed deeply, a full 90 degrees. Leo, I was wrong before. I'm asking you, please give me another chance. Sign this, and I'm all yours. Her voice trembled, her cheeks were bright red, and she looked at me, terrified, awaiting my verdict. In that moment, the entire world seemed to fall silent. Arthur, standing nearby, nodded with satisfaction, then leaned in and whispered in my ear, his voice low enough for only me to hear. Okay, brother, that's enough. Don't overdo it. You're gonna make your little bro look bad. I looked at this woman, trembling with fear and hope, and for the first time, I thought she was actually a little cute. Under the stunned gaze of everyone present, I picked up the priceless agreement. A brilliant light of hope exploded in Isabella's eyes. Then, in front of everyone, I tore it in half. And again, until it was nothing but a pile of confetti. The color drained from Isabella's face, leaving it pale as a sheet. She thought this was it, my final rejection. The relatives started whispering amongst themselves. I tossed the scraps of paper into a nearby trash can, looked at Isabella, and said calmly, "The money? I'll make my own. I don't need yours." Then I turned to Arthur and clapped him on the shoulder. Dad. It was the first time I had ever called him that. Arthur froze for a second, then a huge grin split his face. "We'll still be brothers," I continued, "but I'm keeping your daughter, too." Finally, my gaze returned to Isabella. She was still standing there, frozen, tears welling up in her eyes, completely lost. I took a step toward her, reached out, and gently wiped a tear from the corner of her eye. "We'll talk about the divorce later. For now, you're on probation. We'll see how you do." Tears of joy streamed down Isabella's face. Like a child who'd just been given candy, she nodded vigorously, unable to speak. I hadn't been bought by her money. Instead, I had accepted this truce as the one in charge. From now on, in this relationship, I was calling the shots. After the banquet, life seemed to return to normal, and yet it was completely different. That evening, I had just gotten out of the shower when Arthur sidled up to me, slinging an arm over my shoulder. "My brother, you got style. You didn't let me down," he said, winking conspiratorially. "Come on, let's celebrate. Tonight, we drink until we drop." The words were barely out of his mouth when another hand reached out and pushed him away. Isabella pulled me to her side, guarding me like a territorial cat, glaring at her own father. "He's going shopping with me tomorrow." Arthur's mustache bristled with indignation. "A daughter is like spilled water. You're not even officially back together, and you're already trying to control my brother." "He may be your brother, but he's also my husband." Isabella shot back, not yielding an inch. I stood in the middle, my little brother father-in-law trying to pull my left arm for a night of gaming, and my probationary wife trying to pull my right arm for a day of dates. A new kind of family war seemed ready to erupt at any moment. I looked at the two of them, locked in a silent staring contest, and a happy, exasperated smile spread across my face. A life like this, I thought, wasn't half bad.